Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it, folks. Let's waste no time. Oh, yeah. Let's get to it. Story number 1. What will replace South High Fieldhouse? David Skolnick has a report published March 27th out of Youngstown. Now, the city has hired a company for $113,876 to abate and then demolish South High Fieldhouse. Now, the property has not been used for 15 years. Now, once it's demolished, the property will be sold to Valley Legends Stadium Consortium. I guess they plan to use $9 million. That's the amount that they plan to invest to construct a 3,000-seat stadium with a turf football field and track. Story number 2, an act to protect women. The Vindicator has a report published April 2nd explaining how 3 Mahoning County agencies received a grant to prevent violence against women, according to the headline. Now, this story is out of Columbus with more than $6 million in federal grants to reduce violence against women in Ohio. Now, the Violence Against Women Act grants, I guess the grants will be, they will assist local governments and nonprofits, community-based organizations in administering justice and assistance for victims of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. Story number 3. Mercy Health in top headlines due to contract. WFMJ has a report by Mike Guntner explaining how Cigna and Mercy Health have reached a multi-year agreement, ensuring that Cigna's commercially insured patients will remain in network at Mercy Health facilities. Now, this story made it in because it averts a potential disruption in healthcare access. Story number 4. What is in Youngstown's $222.6 million budget? David Skolnick has a report published March 27th after City Council has approved a $222.6 million budget for 2025 in the city of Youngstown. The budget includes $10.6 million in capital improvements and equipment purchases. Now, this is almost word for word in the report. Councilman Jimmy Hughes was absent from the meeting, according to the headline. Now, police and fire department upgrades were also mentioned in the report. The city took in a record $61,100,100 in 2024 from the 2.75% income tax and business profit tax, which was an increase in 16.42% from 2023, if you did not know. Now, the article ends with BSEC expecting tax collections to drop by 11.74%. That's now, which would still be the second best tax collection year in the city's history. Now, this is all due to the ARP funds that basically rescued the city's budget, which allowed the city to pretty much save in the general fund budget. If you did not know that either, folks, the story is still developing. That's why story number 4 made it this week. Big B. Story number 5: grants to improve the local workforce. The Vindicator has a report published April 2nd, and now it appears that area learning centers have received workforce development grants. The grant money will provide state-of-the-art equipment which will help boost the students' job, or the people who participate in their job preparedness, after the approval of $8 million statewide. That's $8 million statewide. Now, the grant money will be used to develop talent in the fields of healthcare, advanced manufacturing, additive manufacturing, and cybersecurity. $103,980 to YSU, $88,462 to Shafa Career Center and Technical Center for Healthcare, $70,679 to MCCTC for healthcare, and $70,021 to Maplewood Career Center, JVSD, for advanced manufacturing. That's story number 5. Made it this week. Story number 6. Local hospitals remain in top headlines. Pat Littlewitz has a report published April 1st explaining how Insight Health System has gone on the record explaining how it cannot guarantee that about 140 of its employees will ever return to their jobs. Now, according to the report, 19 registered nurses, 17 physical therapists, 10 certified nurses, and 10 occupation nurses assistants will be affected. Now, what got the story in is the fact that on behalf of those speaking for the hospital, money is the main ingredient missing to continue their operations and to keep workers on staff. Folks, the story is still developing. I'm going to start number 6. So let's make it to the top 2 this week. Big headline. Story number 7 and the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that I made this week for you to keep you informed. Folks, if you don't get up this early, you want to check out the show on Mondays. I do upload it to the website early Monday mornings when I come in. So if you don't get up this early and you do want to see what is going on and you have a passion for staying informed, keeping up with the news, this is like a time capsule that you can unfold and stay. I document every show on the website. Sometimes I even watch to myself to see if I've made any mistakes. But let's keep going here. Story number 7. Good news for the Valley. Finally, WFMJ has a headline by Mike Guntner showing improvement in Youngstown. The headline says that vacant homes have shrunk and business growth in the valley is a topic of discussion, according to the Raymond John Weed Foundation. Now, this is all despite ongoing economic challenges. Now, other reports by the Greater Ohio Policy Center show data on population, housing, employment, education, and other factors which compare data which has shown local improvement even amongst women and minorities. Now, home ownership has also increased along with rent. Now, the only thing not seeing much change is wages amongst white or African American households. Now, in all of the growth, the article is on a sad note because poverty has increased in both Youngstown and Mahoning County, thus getting story number 7. Also made it to the top this week. Big headline. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made this week for you to keep you informed. Folks, if you do want to show some support, it does not take much. All you do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Or you can stop at the store at 5648 Mark Street in Boardman, Ohio, and see my smiling face. Stop at the store. Story number 8. Sadly, Campbell Mayor has died suddenly. The city on the hill. It's a sad report. Now, WFMJ has a report by Robert McFerrin explaining how Campbell Mayor Brian Tedesco has died. Now, this is in the midst of an ongoing effort to improve the living conditions in the Campbell community. Now, Tedesco was 67 years old and was elected in 2021. Now, we got the story in is the fact that he died unexpectedly in his sleep. Tedesco will be remembered. He will be remembered as a fighter for the people of Campbell, family man, and a community activist. Not only mayor, but a community activist because he served as a councilman. Started rate. Big headline. Well, folks, there are top 8 local headlines developing news stories that I made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories. So don't you go anywhere. The Mediator, be Brian West. I'll be right back.
Tune in and don't forget to subscribe to Method 8 Inc. YouTube channel. You can also watch free public entertainment. And don't forget to show some support by visiting www.method8inc.com by buying something, clicking something, watching something, or just reading something. You can also sponsor a program as well. That's www.method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. Folks, you know, what I'm learning from all of this division and Republicans fighting for America and the Democrats fighting for some form of America, I'm learning that America has a different mindset. Everybody has a different mindset. You know, I watched the Capitol riots. I watched the Black Lives Matter protests. And I watched people fighting for their benefits, protesting for Social Security, protesting against Elon. And, as a former sailor, and all these protests and activists and people getting their limelight, their shine, and getting to tell their story. I am a veteran, and I'm sure a lot of veterans will tell you when you serve America, you have to face some harsh conditions. So in all this back and forth, and I remember when I would come into port, and I would see not too many people. When your ship comes into port, you'll see family members. Hey, there's Johnny. Everybody, they see all these family members, and I'm not gonna lie, when you come into port and you don't see anybody, it's probably a terrible experience. You go to an NBA game or NFL game, there's fans everywhere cheering and supporting their team, and I just think America is confused. Now you see about 100, 200, probably 300 more people protesting at the White House. Probably seen about a whole global riot for Black Lives Matter. But when you're in the military, no. You'll be lucky if you see a president when you come into port. But it kind of makes you think, who's fighting what wars, and if all these people can protest, why don't they just join the military? Or why does the person on drugs always want to borrow money off people who doesn't have the money? Why don't you go borrow the money from the drug dealer? Or why do people constantly want to attack those who are trying to protect the people? Why don't they attack the people who are making the problems? Kind of makes you wonder. Why does the robbery occur on the innocent? Why doesn't the robbery occur on the bad guy? Life is confusing, folks. Makes me wonder. Makes me wonder about the birds and the bees, folks. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to story number 1, the market crash prediction. MoneyWise has a headline by Robert Kiyosaki warning that the biggest crash in history is coming. The Rich Dad, Poor Dad author explains a number of scenarios, but seems very pessimistic about where the market is headed. Now, data seems to be what he's using to back up his claims. Now, the main point is that he makes in this article is the fact that the baby boomers' fortune could be going bust. It means it could be coming to an end. Now, the article is filled with numbers the numbers that are backing up his claims, because what he's saying is that the baby boomer generation is basically fading away. Now, this story is still developing because there are so many talking points when it comes to stocks making the headlines. That's why story number 1 made it this week. Story number 2, collective bargaining is back in the headlines. National Review has a headline explaining how Trump is taking aim at collective bargaining in the federal workforce. Now, this discussion goes as far back as 1935 for the National Labor Relations Act of 1935, in which Franklin Roosevelt sought to supercharge private sector unions. Now, the opposition believed that collective bargaining they believe that it had no place in federal employment because the people employ federal workers. Now, the entire argument in this report is that if unions are private, should they be in the federal mix? Now, the article emphasizes the fact that collective bargaining has been in the mix for for just that long. It's been since 1935, probably longer than that. It's been there for a long time, and for that very long time, the Democrats have been pro-union and have used this as a call to action for voters when collective bargaining is under attack. Now Trump could be fueling the flames of this argument if collective bargaining and unions should be allowed in the business of the federal government. So he's basically feeding the flames. Well, the question is if that should be the case, if they should be still allowed in government. Now, it is important to note that the benefits that a lot of workers have are due to union lobbying and to balance things out when it comes to worker rights. So it's kind of showing you the pros and the cons of unions. But the pros are that if there were not a lot of labor unions, then a lot of people probably would not have a lot of benefits. Folks, the story is still developing. Let's get story number 2 into the top headlines. Big story number 3, the farming scenario. Harvesting is not cheap, folks. The Cool Down has a report focusing on how farmers have already been devastated by a rare crisis that destroys crops overnight. But there's a but. This is not the topic of discussion because the farming situation could be even worse due to federal aid cuts and tariffs. This is what's in this report. Now, farmers continue to make headlines because they could be hit hard by weather and even harder by policy. Now, some with no choice, that's farmers with no choice but to break the rules if they have to, folks. Let's get a good story into the top 8. Labor is also a factor. That's why story number 3 made it this week. Story number 4, a good private payroll report, but there's a but. Reuters has a report explaining how U.S. private payrolls growth has beat expectations in March. Now, the article says that payrolls increased by 155,000 jobs. The report goes on to explain how the increase in payroll is across all industries. What got the story in is the fact that progress could take a hit due to Trump's tariffs. Folks, the story is still developing. That's why story number 4 made this week. Well, folks, are our top 4 international headlines developing news stories that made this week. I'm right back with the top 4. So don't you go order. You're the Mediator. Me, Brian West. I'm right back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week for you to keep you informed, folks. I see so many news reports, and I listen to so much radio. I was listening to Sean Hannity, and his version of Trump's tariff plan is totally different from what we're seeing the world. I have to remind you, folks, as before I get to this top 4, is that, folks, we are in a serious situation here. America and the world. We literally were brought to our knees by the COVID craziness. This was Trump, and now we're then they had to make the transition. Now we're under another crazy transition, which will be the tariffs. But Sean Hannity says it will be okay, But one side is saying this, another side is saying that. One side is stirring up the crowd. So here I am in the middle, wondering how the hell we're going to get through this. I hope I'm a voice for those in the middle, for those working, and for those who are hoping that this will be something that we can get over, folks. People are losing money, businesses are being shattered, and they already were shattered during COVID. The government was leaking out cash, and now they're saying that these tariffs will help bring in dollars. There's 2 sides of this coin. You can listen to some of the Sean Hannity radio shows, and maybe you may get a different outlook. You may even look at Israel and the world differently through their eyes headed into Palm Sunday and the resurrection season. But through the other lens eyes, you will probably see the fact that, something has been going on. Somebody's been keeping secrets. People are getting killed. And then all of a sudden, we're supposed to be all holy and sanctified. So something is happening, even in the Abrahamic faiths and religions. From the seed of Noah, people who have been for years somehow cannot get along. And now we're all supposed to be calm, rational, and positive about Resurrection Sunday, folks. I do believe that if Christ himself came down, came back to life, folks, we'd have some explaining to do to Yeshua Yahweh in the flesh, folks. Whew. Whew. Where is the blood? Let's waste no time, folks, of the Lord. It's been shattered, slaughtered by all of the Lord's Abrahamic religions, folks, because we have literally lost our minds. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 5. Folks, speaking of death, the death of a 9-year-old sparks concern. This is a sad story. Now, in the middle of a medical storm, it's rare that you'll see a dental story. Now, due to the growing stories making us aware of the stress that doctors and dental workers are under, the story of a 9-year-old girl who lost her life hours after going under anesthesia was, well, she was doing this for a dental procedure, which was, according to the report, was already being investigated after a previous patient nearly died. Though such a serious story sounds the alarm on the already strained medical business, while also highlighting the continued attention when it comes to fatal medical mistakes. Now, this story is tragic and not only puts the attention on kids, but also adults. Folks, let's get into the story to the top 8. That's why story number 5 made it this week. Big. Story number 6. How do you make businesses happy? The Street has a few headlines that are important. One explaining how a struggling burger chain is closing over a dozen locations in 2025. Another report explains how an iconic ice cream chain is unexpectedly closing 40 locations. A struggling pizza chain also made headlines after filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Each report explains what a lot of business owners seem to be complaining about when it comes to funding, rising costs, and hiring good help. Folks, let's get it. Thus keeping the question of how do you keep American businesses happy? Folks, this story is still developing. That's story number 6. Also made it to the top 2 this week. Big story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week for you to keep you informed. Folks, if you don't get up this early, you catch out the show. I do upload it to the website on Monday morning. So if you don't get up this early, check out the show on the website. Story number 7. Will trimming the government tree, the budget, have consequences, especially the federal budget? The Washington Post has a headline explaining how DHS, Department of Homeland Security, cuts that they're used to fund for the groups that are helping legal immigrants become U.S. citizens. They're saying that these cuts are going to cause some problems. And the story is probably worth a read if you're interested in that particular part of the discussion. Immigration battle. Now, the entire report hits the voting base chord, and it basically hits the chord on what appears to be a silent voting base, the immigration base, in which the new administration has kept in mainstream headlines, basically saying that it's unfair. This is the base. This is where most of the Democratic Party has been able to get their votes from. Now, the article reveals something interesting about the immigration fight and even talks about eliminating more than $22 million in federal funding. Now, what got the story in is the fact that just about every federally funded organization is on the chopping block, thus getting the story into the top 8. The sanctuary city debates is also tied in this headline, and Catholic Charities of Northwest California is also tangled in the web. They're saying that this whole scenario was orchestrated to get votes, and not only that, to get votes, but to cater to a part of society that was illegal. USCIS states in the article that they have helped more than 350,000 immigrants prepare for citizenships. They're pleading their case, saying that what they was doing was positive and it did not infringe on the basic rights that we all enjoy. Story number 7, big. Story number 8, and the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week for you. Keep you informed, folks. If you do want to show some support, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program. Or you can stop at the store at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio. See my smiling face. Story number 8. Is Trump's economy on a cliff? Cory Booker spent 24 hours giving a speech American farmers, car dealers, and business owners brace for yet another battle in a tariff war. Morning Star not only has a report about what this could mean for America, but for the global economy. The article is written by Valerio Baselli in what he calls uncertainty as the biggest concern in Trump's economic plans. The article shows that no one wins in this trade war and is filled with numbers. Now it's basically like the Great Flood with Trump, who's not that young himself. In this Great Flood story, Trump could be playing Noah or could be playing God. This is basically, if you want to use this analogy, because he seems to be dictating and basically orchestrating all of this opposition. Now, all of this is in hopes to bring an old version of America back to manifestation. This is how the story unfolds. A man who comes up with the vision that he wants to make America great again, and then manifest these old ideas in a new world that just doesn't see it as possible. Folks, it's like betting the whole house in hopes of bringing more business back to America. Nobody knows how it's going to turn out. This story is still developing, because if you did not know, the United States has about 33.2 million businesses, with 99.9% of them being small businesses. The biggest question is, in this vision that the current president has, is after the reset button, what American businesses, these American businesses that already are made, have the made in the USA stamp, they already have the tag, what will be left of them, or will any of them be left once the tariff war is over? Or will it be that bad? There's so many points of views on this story. Folks, CBS News has a report stating that Trump says his tariffs could bring in trillions in revenue, but experts are saying otherwise. Folks, there's so many sides to look at this pendulum story, and there's so many angles to look at how this story will develop. Story number 8, that's why I made it to the top 2. Well, folks, there are top 8 local and international headlines in developing news stories that I made this week. Whew. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of the research. As usual, I thank all the news outlets, journalists, people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just a man in the middle, the mediator, navigating every news story just to keep you informed, trying my best to get them correct. Well, folks, I am out of here. If you do want to show some support, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program. Or you can stop at a store at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio, and see my smiling face. Well, folks, I am out of here. Have a great holy season headed into next week, and we'll try to celebrate it all together. Well, folks, I am out of here. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator. Me, Brian West. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.